There is a person you haven't spoken to in months, maybe years, and yet, right now, they are living inside your head. You replay the conversation. You imagine what you should have said. You wonder if they think about you. You tell yourself to stop. And then, 10 minutes later, you start again. You are not weak for this. You are not obsessed. Your brain is doing something ancient and precise. And once you understand what it is, everything changes. The answer has nothing to do with love. It has nothing to do with hate. It has everything to do with how your brain was built to handle threats it could not resolve. Let's go back, way back. For most of human history, your ancestors lived in small groups, 50 to 150 people. That was your world. There was no leaving. There was no blocking someone. There was no moving to a new city and starting over. If someone in your group wronged you, betrayed you, humiliated you in front of others, you still had to see them. Tomorrow. And the day after. And every day until one of you died. This meant that social injury was not a minor inconvenience. It was a survival event. Being cast out of your group was not embarrassing. It was fatal. No food, no shelter, no protection. Alone on a landscape that wanted to kill you. Your brain learned this. Over hundreds of thousands of years, it evolved a system specifically designed to detect, analyze, and obsessively revisit unresolved social threats, not because your brain is broken, because the brains that did this survived. The brains that shrugged and moved on did not. That system is still running in you. Right now. In 2011, researcher Ethan Cross at the University of Michigan published a study that changed how neuroscientists thought about emotional pain. His team discovered that when participants were shown a photo of someone who had rejected them, the same regions of the brain lit up as when participants were exposed to physical pain. Not similar regions, not nearby regions. The exact same neural circuitry. Your brain does not distinguish between a punch to the face and a betrayal from someone you trusted. To the brain, pain is pain. Threat is threat. And what does your brain do with physical pain? It does not ignore it. It focuses. It sends resources. It runs diagnostics. If you break your wrist, your brain does not allow you to forget about your wrist. It makes your wrist impossible to ignore until the damage is assessed, understood, and resolved. The person who hurt you is your brain's broken wrist. It keeps checking. It keeps probing. It keeps running simulations of what happened, trying to find the moment where the threat could have been neutralized. This is called rumination. And it is not a flaw, it is a feature, one that was never designed for the modern world. Psychologist Susan Nolan Hoeksema spent decades studying rumination at Yale University. She found that people who ruminate do not do so because they are seeking emotional relief. They do it because they believe, on some level, that replaying the event will eventually produce a different outcome. A better answer. A reason that makes the hurt make sense. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It was built to find causes and solutions. When it encounters something that has no resolution, a person who never apologized, a friendship that ended without explanation, a relationship that collapsed without closure, it refuses to file the experience away. It keeps the case open. It keeps returning to the evidence. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik Effect, named after Soviet researcher Bluma Zeigarnik, who first documented it in 1927. She noticed that waiters in a cafe could remember the exact details of unpaid orders, but the moment an order was paid, it disappeared from their memory almost instantly. Incomplete tasks occupy cognitive space in a way completed ones never do. The person who hurt you is an unpaid order. Your brain cannot close the tab. This is why you find yourself composing messages you never send. Why you rehearse arguments in the shower. Why you imagine running into them on the street and finally saying everything you never got to say. Your brain is not torturing you for fun. It is trying to complete the loop. It is trying to reach resolution on a threat that never resolved. Now here is the part that surprises most people. The intensity of the obsessive thinking has almost nothing to do with how much you loved or cared about the person. It has everything to do with how ambiguous the wound was. Researcher Roy Baumeister at Florida State University has studied the psychology of rejection and social exclusion extensively. He found that people do not ruminate most intensely about the people who hurt them the most clearly. They ruminate most intensely about the people who left them most confused. The mixed signals, the hot and cold, the person who was kind one moment and cruel the next, the relationship that ended with no real reason given, the friend who simply disappeared. Clarity, even painful clarity, allows the brain to file the experience. Ambiguity keeps it open. Think about that. The person living rent-free in your head is probably not the one who caused the most damage. It is the one who left the most questions unanswered. The one your brain cannot categorize. The one whose behavior refuses to fit into a clean narrative. And your brain will keep working on that puzzle. It will keep testing theories. It will keep revising the story, looking for the version of events that finally resolves the threat and allows you to feel safe again. But here is what no one tells you. Resolution does not always come from understanding. Sometimes the brain's search for answers is itself the trap, because the more you revisit the story, the more vivid it becomes. The more vivid it becomes, the more emotionally charged. The more emotionally charged, the more your brain treats it as an active, ongoing threat rather than a closed past event. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent years at New York University mapping the role of the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, in emotional memory. His research revealed something unsettling. Every time you retrieve a memory, you do not simply play it back, you reconstruct it. And during reconstruction, the memory becomes temporarily unstable, susceptible to modification before being stored again. This process is called reconsolidation. What this means is that every time you replay the incident in your head, you are not reviewing the original event. You are reviewing your last version of the event, emotionally amplified by the current retrieval. Each replay does not clarify. Each replay intensifies. Your brain is not healing itself by revisiting this. It is, in many cases, making the wound deeper with every review. So what do? The first thing is to understand what your brain is actually asking for. It is not asking you to relive the pain. It is asking for closure on an open threat. And closure does not require the other person's participation. It does not require an apology you may never receive. It does not require the situation to be fair. It requires you to manually file the case. This means making a deliberate decision, not to forgive, not necessarily to forget, but to reclassify, to move the experience from the active threat folder to the resolved history folder, to tell the part of your brain that keeps checking on it, I have assessed this. I have understood what I can understand. The rest does not require my continued attention. This sounds simple. It is not. But it is possible, and it gets easier each time your brain tries to reopen the file and you consciously choose not to follow it back in. The ancient wiring that keeps you returning to the person who hurt you was built for a world where you had no choice but to face them tomorrow. You are no longer in that world. You have something your ancestors never had. You have the option to leave. Not physically, you may have already done that, but mentally, cognitively. You can choose to stop reopening the file. You can let the loop run without feeding it. You can let your brain discover, slowly and imperfectly, that the threat has passed, that the case does not need to be solved, that the tab can be closed. The person in your head right now is not really there. They are a signal your brain is running on a loop because it does not yet believe the danger is over. The moment you stop needing the answer, the signal loses its power. Tonight, when the thought comes back, and it will come back, you can notice it differently, not as evidence that you are still broken, but as evidence that your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. And then you can do what it was never built to do on its own. You can let it go.